What's up, Rockstars, and welcome to another news video. I have a ton of new campaigns out right now, some big IP ones, some crazy ones that I'm cautious to even show you. There's a huge amount, plus some updates, some things coming up, and of course a talking point at the end when it comes to AI, art, and board games. So let's go ahead and dive into it. All right, we're gonna go quick. I'm gonna try and tell you a little bit about the gameplay, a little bit about the pledges, a little bit about what I see that I like or don't like. So there'll be some opinion throughout it. Obviously, everything is linked down in the description below, so feel free to check that out. There's also a subscribe button and a like button there too, if you would like to go ahead and show the video some love. Now, also comments. If there is something that I've missed, if there's something that you'd like me to take a look at, if there's a company you'd like me to investigate, all that, obviously, reach out down in the comments below, or let others know about it as well. All right, starting things out with Shin Megami Tensei, the board game. Now, as a huge video game fan, as a huge JRPG fan, this is really cool. I have very good memories of this on the PS2 era. Obviously, Persona has been kind of bigger lately, and now there's actually a new fantasy version of the same kind of game where you essentially like it's like Pokemon with demons, Japanese style. It's crazy. So the Shin Megami Tensei, the board game, is actually by this Acrea, which is like a company that essentially does a whole lot of like branding stuff for anime, whether it's manga or, you know, TV or all sorts of stuff, right? It says here, what, video figures, illustrations, goods, and promotions, right? Now, that doesn't sound very good. It is the first created. However, as you can see, 659,000 raised from almost 2,000 backers till 17 days to go. So this is a very interesting thing. It is available to the US, and actually the shipping is actually less than Japan, which is kind of funny. It's very interesting to me to see the Japanese board game industry start to thrive a bit more. I've been covering a few more of these. A lot of them are Japanese only, which is, I think, one of the big hurdles that they'll have to do to become mainstream. Obviously, something like a fan favorite like Shin Megami Tensei is certainly one way to do it. 70 plus detailed demon figures. I think there's about 72 actually. And you'll see that it's all in Japanese and then in English. And you'll notice, of course, that create a new world with a right. The English is a little bit of English, right? It's a little kind of broken English, and that's honestly a concern of mine for the final product. Now, will it, you know, have that at the final thing? I don't know, but it's certainly a possibility. Anytime it's not the native language and the translation, you wonder about the translation, either the company that they're doing it, the delays that can sometimes happen, or just the overall quality, right? It's kind of the worry there. But this is kind of like an interesting area control game where the final battle is a little bit more overt. Now, it says here about 180, 240 minutes. I'm glad they're being a little bit more honest about how long of a game this can be. Sometimes these can be a little bit longer. Honestly, a lot of it depends on your group and how much smack talk you do as well, right? Now, it is kind of cool. So they, again, small text here, and there's, you know, like the renders aren't shown off super duper well all the time. And there's, it's just kind of a weird, I don't know. It very much looks a little rookie, right? A little amateurish, which makes sense being their first one. But it looks like what a kind of campaign I would see years and years ago. The minis, though, are very cool. They're pretty much straight, literally from the art from the video game. And that's for better or worse. So it looks like they have made a few adjustments. I think they're being pretty smart about it. And there's nothing totally crazy going on when it comes to the sculpts either that would make me kind of bat an eyelash, except for one which looks like they've actually edited. So you're essentially going over Tokyo and the various districts, trying to get the demons as they show up there. There will be tokens on there, and there's some cards as you get your demons, and, you know, forge new bonds and all that kind of stuff, right? The gameplay detail is a little high level, so there's a little bit about that. A lot of it is about the video games, right? With obviously Nocturne being the highlight from my memory, definitely in the PS2 era. Though there was even like some PSP stuff going on that looked pretty cool as well. A lot of older games, right? Like I said, the newer ones have been the Persona series mostly. And it's kind of a spin-off of it, more or less. This one's always a little bit cooler because it did have demons. And as you can see, they're pretty much one-to-one from the art to the mini, which is awesome. And they are definitely a unique style. There's a huge variety of crazy ones, outlandish ones, regular ones, goofy ones. all the mix that you could think of, right? Just all like Jack Frost looking like this, right? Like it's just all over the place in a very, very cool way. I feel that somehow meshes all together. It is quite impressive. The only one that gave me a little bit of pause, right? It looks like the tail here they thickened up, so that's good. So they did some adjustments here. It's kind of hard to see, but obviously they thickened that the shaft of that like spear or halberd or whatever. So they've done some smart things there. Some of these, like those blades there still look maybe a little skinny. Same with this one here, a little skinny. So some are maybe more updated than others. This one, I was like, there's no way they're going to do that. But if you look, it looks like they've actually filled that in, which makes sense, right? So it looks like the gray there is overtly kind of a pyramid shape kind of thing. So some things, again, they'll need to thicken up or change a little bit. But for the most part, they've stayed true to it. And for the most part, they've made some good adjustments to where this is actually fairly printable. I've been kind of impressed. There's a lot of different sculpts here, right? This is kind of pricey when it comes to that. And then, of course, you have the Demon Dialogue card, right? Again, if you've played the recent, like, Persona 5 is the most common right now, right? You kind of know what this kind of operates as, right? Same kind of thing here. You get your Grimoire cards, which are a little bit more like strategy kind of cards here. And then different chips and components. But as you can see, they don't really, like, show it off very well. It says 200 plus of this stuff. How much of each? God only knows, right? And that's kind of the interesting part here is it doesn't really show a lot here. It has a gameplay feel, and there is a video you can watch, but the gameplay summary is really, really high level, right? Essentially, you do get a climactic battle where you actually face off, which again gives me that JRPG vibes, which I actually appreciate them incorporating that, even though it's kind of like an area control management sort of kind of thing with the overhead map, right, and the demons on it, which is, again, kind of interesting. Shipping wise, at the US, it's $58 pretty much for it. And you can see that you have an early bird pledge here for about, $312, right? So pretty expensive. Just in general, right? And it's for April 2025, so it should be fairly quick, which is kind of interesting. So that is for the early bird pledge. Otherwise, it is normally $390. So barely any difference. Well, no, I guess it's actually a pretty hefty difference, right? Less than $100 off, but still quite a bit. So that'd definitely be the one that you'd want to get. And it says that it is available. There's one left of 1,000. So like right now you could actually grab that. Keep an eye on it. But I would actually do this and then change your pledge if it opens up. Otherwise you want to at least be able to grab that. Either way, it is a lot, right? There is a lot there. In fact, I want to say, where does it show there's an image I scrolled past. I want to show you guys real quick where it just shows kind of everything you're getting. And it is a lot. Yeah, like this picture right here, which again, very small picture there. But as you can see, it's about $400 or $300 for the early bird. Again, a big savings there. So if you can grab this, feel free to. Again, link down in the description below. A lot of different minis, a lot of different sculpts. Pretty, compared to the fact that it's IP based, the fact that they're doing all these different sculpts, it's definitely a big collector's item for sure. If you have fond memories of the game, this is something you're going to want to get into. If you're not a fan of the IP, I don't know if this would be enough to make you take the jump. I think it looks like an interesting idea. Again, there's not enough gameplay information, and there's a little bit of unknowns here to where if you're not really a fan of the IP, I'm not sure it would draw you in otherwise. But Shin Megami Tensei definitely does have me perk my ears just because of the classic JRPG. All right. Moving on from that, we have Sea Beasts, Vikings versus Beasts, Ocean Crawler Co-op. This is a very interesting game. It's essentially a two-player game, but you can play multiple two-player games together to kind of play together. It's a very interesting thing where the expansions essentially add more ships for you to deal with. But this is, honestly, I think it's pretty cool. So this is Littlest Lantern. It's our first created here. 467,000 raised, over 3,700 backers, still 9 days ago. They're doing quite well, especially for a first time. And I think it's because they have something kind of unique, kind of different here, which is pretty cool. So essentially, they have these gigantic minis if you want them, which is pretty neat. You're on the ship, And bad things there's two of you there, and bad things can happen to the ship, right? So you have different monsters that can show up on the outside. You have like leaks and stuff you can deal with, and there's various cargo and stuff that you're trying to protect, and all this stuff is happening. Obviously, you can replace these cards, put the miniature on it as well, and you're just really you're working together to kind of deal with the stuff on the ship inside of a campaign. So it's kind of like you're dealing with this, but then you're going through a story as well. And the story actually kind of interesting in how they do it. I'll talk about the pledges in a moment. Let me see. They'll show, this right here. So you're really marking up with like a dry erase board, right? You're really marking up. If I could get it. I know they'll show it. I know they will. These things are so long. The scroll is real here, guys. All right, right here. Finally, we got to gameplay. As you can see, you're tracking it through this way, which is a really cool kind of way to do it, I think. So as you see, sail, beast, Vikings, refocus, right? Seeing Colossus cargo, sail to port, right? So you're doing this kind of loop through the campaign as you're going through it. Honestly, again, I think that's pretty cool. I love the idea of managing this. I love the idea of these monsters coming in and wrecking your ship, and you're trying to essentially get from one place to another. Meanwhile, you have your character card that you're, dealing with there. It looks cool. I like it. I really dig this. I think that's awesome. Now, the pledges are a little weird. So if we go here, back to the pledges. Dear Lord, there's so many things here. Monstrous minis, what's next? Players, like this is too much. Pledge levels. Here we go. Okay, I'm right there. $49 for the base pledge. That's really cool. That'll give you that 1 to 2 player game, right? Where it's essentially everything I kind of just showed, more or less. Minus like, fancy stuff like minis. You have the heroic pledge, $99, right? Which comes with the miniatures and stuff like that. So a very fancy version. And then you have the legendary pledge, which comes with like all the wooden tokens and the expansions. Now, the big issue between this and this obviously is that it's this like $50 more. The legendary pledge, though, you'll see here, legendary pledge, $149. This is definitely the one I think that you want. The 30% off is honestly a pretty good deal for all of the other components. If you're going kind of in, this is what I would kind of suggest. This one has a lot there, but with the expansions here, I think it's kind of a given. It's literally $50 for both expansions plus all of the like upgraded components and stuff. It's kind of a non-brainer. This also adds the Sundrop minis. So you have the base pledge, you have the heroic pledge, and then you have the legendary pledge. And there's a reason I think most people are backing that. It's honestly a pretty good deal. That's an all-in gameplay. There's a lot there. Definitely, I think, the one to get on that. So yeah, it's just weird that it's such a good deal for all those minis. Again, the minis are really big and all that. $150, a very unique looking game, which I think is cool. And again, if you don't want all that, you can still get the actual gameplay, 2 players, you and one other person working together to fight all these monsters for like $50. Easy peasy there. That's really nice. I dig that. I think that's an awesome value. It's something new. It's something different. I think that's why they're being rewarded for it. So, Littlest Lantern, yeah, pretty cool. All right, next up we have Lairs. Lairs is fascinating. Again, offering something a little bit different that I really appreciate, but not quite funding as much. But it's because it's actually fairly cheap. And again, still 1,400 plus backers, still 9 days to go. So I think they're probably going to get to like 2,000. It's doing pretty good. I think it's really cool. This is by Kids Table Board Gaming. Again, not a company I normally cover, but they're doing something really neat here. So essentially, it's kind of like Battleship on steroids. And as you can see here, you have the Lairs, $49 US, or Lairs plus deeper dungeons where you get to build bigger and more complex lairs, $82. Again, not too bad. Maybe a little pricey for what you're getting, which I think is why it hasn't funded even more. But, when it comes to these kind of more indie game companies, this is kind of what makes sense, right? So, the Kickstarter edition comes with stuff that's on, just little silly kind of fun things. But what is this game? Oh, yeah, for what you get and the reason the price is kind of, a lot of it's this wooden tokens, because most of it, other than the wooden tokens, is just, some cards. Again, not a huge amount, some tiles, right? A couple cards, a map sheet, right? Nothing crazy expensive here. Even the dice here are basic dice. So it's not even, I don't know. I'm kind of surprised it's at 82 for that. That seems like a lot. Okay, now one of the things you're going to see here is like the boxes. So essentially this adds, as you play the game, you unlock more expansions, which again, once I show you the game itself, I'll kind of make sense a bit more. So if I can get a good picture of the game here, you're essentially, see if I just want a basic one. You know, the video might actually show it a little bit better. See, again, these companies sometimes don't really, I think, just show off their games super well, right? It's like it assumes you watched the video or whatever. So let's mute that. Nobody cares. Okay, so essentially you're going to build, you have a little dungeon that you're building, right? And your layout, you're going to populate with minions that you have, and traps and stuff like that, and then one exit and treasure chests and all that, right? The other person has no idea the layout of this, right? And so they can do different actions, right? They're going to have the same one on their side, and you're essentially trying to escape with a whole bunch of loot and survive their dungeon before they can. And so they can spin all their different actions to do stuff, map out, and then, oh no, hey, there's a monster there. And so they're going to reset, but they know now that part of the map. So they're going to explore another part of the map, and they're going to try and keep doing that, right? So that's what you and them are both doing at the same time against each other's maps that are custom made that you made, which is pretty cool. Now the cards add a little bit more complexity and what you can do and all that kind of stuff to make it, you know, kind of more than just that simple idea. But that idea, I think, is pretty neat. I think that's really cool. It's something different. And as you're playing through it, you have these expansion boxes, like I said, that they're not like paid for expansions. They're just part of the game that add more layers to it. So you can now build more and more, you know, different things are happening in your layer. So very cool idea. I think that's awesome. Again, the only thing is maybe a little pricey for what you're getting. Just like component wise, it's a little much, right? $50 for just the layers, or if you want the expansion that adds about another third to it there. So anyway, very cool. Again, I like it. I'm glad they're doing something different. I think that's really neat. Okay, we have Tanares Expeditions Central C. I have a whole review and unboxing. I'll try and link down to those below, but feel free to check my channel out, of course, as well. I'll continue to kind of show those off. This still has about a day left, a little bit more by the time you see this. I'm recording this obviously the day before. They have this like battleship thing, which is really cool here. But the Tanares Expeditions in general just is a really neat system, a very bite-sized, streamlined way to play the Tanares game system. That is a very fantastic game system, of course, that a lot of people really like. So yeah, you can, you know, go through and be a pirate, which is kind of cool, and go through this kind of book story quest that kind of ramps up. So it's kind of like a roguelite in that each one you start and then you level up and then you start and you level up, kind of like a Zombicide style thing where the power ramp is a lot quicker, which is pretty cool. But you still have unlocks over time as well, which is pretty neat too. They've added a lot, as you can see. They've been unlocking quite a bit of stuff there. And then for how much it'll cost you, all in is about $200, which is a bit more than I was anticipating. But I guess it's still obviously a lot less than a normal Tanares thing. $200 for everything, not too shabby. And as you can see, 515 people are going for that. There are a few more that, you know, like the Pirates Mask, that's just, you know, getting access and stuff. This is actually the second biggest one. It's just the core box at 80. In other words, just give me the game, I'll play through it, and that's it. I think that's pretty cool. They have this one as well, all in plus villains and miniature. This is the big one, 250. And so I always hate that. Like the all in is not the all in, right? Because there are miniatures that you can get to. This one, again, also broken down a little weird. They have a chart that kind of explains it. And I'll show you why I would have grouped it a little bit differently. Oh, they do have these two hero packs. This is something new. So they have these two here, and then they have these two here as well. So 4 additional heroes you can have, plus of course, you know, component trays and fancy dice and you know, acrylic tokens and all that kind of stuff. These for the villain pack, these are the same miniatures that you get from, I think, the second Tanares Adventures. They're kind of their big second one. So all of these should look familiar to you if you have those, and you don't need to re-add those. This is new though, I believe. And the pirate ship, super cool. Love to see that. That's really cool. Okay, yeah, right here. So the all-in and the all-in plus minis. What's kind of interesting here is I imagine most people want these, the miniatures, more than, say, the player dashboard kit or even the metal coins. So it's kind of interesting that there's not just a like all-in minis and then all-in plus the other stuff, right? The sleeves and the acrylic tokens and the C dice kit. I would almost reverse this, right? So to get the minis in a bundle, you have to get the 250 version, which is kind of odd. So really what you'd want to do is get the Sea Explorer and then add them. So that's 100, right? And if you go to the add-ons here, you can see that there's the villain miniatures, pirate miniature, right? So there's the various miniatures that you can kind of add pack to it. Either way, it won't be 250, right? And that's kind of the big difference there. So it is kind of weird. Again, I wouldn't have set it up that way, but that's how they set it up. Either way, 429,000 a race, almost 500,000, over 2,000 backers. So Tanares is still pulling in thousands of people. Very cool to see, but obviously there's bigger fish out there. So let's go and move towards some of those in a bit. Before that, though, there's Storyfold Wildwoods. Again, 3,000 backers, more than the Tanares. 184,000 rates. This is such a cool concept. I love this. It also takes apart from Conan, the board game, one of my favorite board games. So I'll explain that as well. This is by Open House Studio. They do obviously really good quality, very much more light, artistic expression kind of board games, which I really dig. The storybook, literally, it looks like a story, right? You pull it out, all the gameplay's right there. It's very contained. It's really a solo game, but they say it plays really well as like a couples game or a friends game where you have one other person, you guys collaborate on what you're trying to do, because a lot of it is managing the board. There's monsters that are like taking away stuff, and you're trying to go to different locations in the map, and there's a storybook you're going through it, right, which is very kind of cool, I think. So you have the story. This river card, I'm glad they're even calling it the river, right? So this is, again, the same thing in Conan, where you take one and then it goes to the end, and so you could still use it again, but it's far more expensive, less impactful, right? So it kind of incentivizes using the ones closer to the left, but if you really want to, you can still put them to the right. Again, you're exploring those locations, right? You have a learn to play through the cards. That's kind of interesting, I suppose, as long as the gameplay is streamlined and simple enough, that totally works just fine. They're adding little like bookmarks and stuff like that as kind of an exclusive pack, which is kind of neat. Honestly, I think it looks pretty cool. I like the idea of this a lot. It's very self-contained, very focused on what it is. Obviously, it looks very pretty. You can get the deluxe bundle for $89, and that makes it with the resin dice. Resin dice look very pretty. You get those really sharp edges. The wooden tokens, right? A neoprene playing mat, which looks great. So just a very fancy version, which honestly, if you're playing through this, I think that's a really cool way to do it. Otherwise, you can get it for about $39, which again, pretty cheap. And as you can see, over 1,700 people, that's what they're going for. A lot just want, hey, this is a great price for a neat little board game. Let's go ahead and do that. So yeah, very cool. I'm glad to see them doing that. Still have 10 days left to go. Again, obviously, everything's linked down in the description below. Okay, moving on, we have Insania. Insania is crazy. It is way, way over the top. It's like wherever you draw the line, it's probably passing over that. This is like Hate the board game if Hate was made for adults and Hate was actually a children's game, right? This is very, very over the top. In like an extreme way. One of the things I like about it is that this is exactly the kind of stuff, just like the storybook one, right? That Kickstarter, that crowdfunded board games are really for. This is a niche product that not a whole lot of people, that's not going to be some mass marketed thing in retail everywhere selling, bananas. This is something for a select group of people that want something that isn't mass marketed. There's something that is a little bit more unique, that is a little bit maybe rough around the edges, but is something that either through theme, through mechanic, through whatever, is just unique to crowdfunding. They say they have like retail plans. I have no idea how this could ever be retail, but whatever. Yeah, I guess this is almost like Hate mixed with Cards Against Humanity. It's probably about as close as you can get. 62,000 to raise, 400 backers, 16 days to go. So obviously, again, a very niche product, and just know that going in. They do have bigger miniatures. Their miniatures are about 40 millimeters plus, so a little bit larger, so they can be a little bit more detailed. I'm going to scroll through this just a little bit, but obviously very much 18 plus on a lot of this. There's all sorts of craziness going on here. The fact that you don't roll dice and instead you have cards that you kind of link together through these, that's kind of neat, I suppose. The amount of missions you go through are crazy. There's like one where you're going through this cultist like self cannibals, and like one of the players, like you have to choose to like eat your own tongue, and so that player like can just like grunt for the rest of the game, stuff like that. I really dig that. I think that's kind of funny. This is kind of a neat idea that they're exploring, where the that's how you deal damage, is a little knife, but they like it if you could actually stick it into the monster's base as well, so you literally just like stab it, which is kind of cool. I like that the gameplay is the how to play is kind of way up here. That's kind of neat. They have the initiative track, and there's some manipulation there and stuff like that. So there's a lot of mechanics over here. You can go in and dig into it. Again, I'm not going to dig into it too much here. The miniatures, again, not too much. And if you go to the pledge here, $115 for the base pledge, right? And that gets you the 4 hero miniatures, 36 enemy miniatures. So there's 4 copies of most of these, except the vessel. And then you have a Mystic Portal, you have this bad guy here, and then you have this boss here as well. Plus, obviously, the map pieces and 300 plus cards and all this other stuff, right? So a lot of different stuff here. Then you have the Hardcore Edition, what they're calling here the Prefectus or whatever, 189. So again, still less than 200. This comes with this Whispers of Pompeii expansion, which has the Carnifex here, and then Vera Osa as well. Plus like the Phalanx expansion module and some more characters, stuff like that. So quite a bit there. That's really the only 2 you care about is those 2. Now, if I go down here, one of the cool things I saw that I thought was pretty neat is this right here. So this is one of their backers, or I guess one of their fans. They had asked a social media question because they wanted to make somebody with a disability. And again, it's in their normal kind of like crazy, over the top, non-PC way of even like talking about that, which is on point, on brand for them. Well, it's not how I'd communicate. I'm happy they can communicate the way that they want to and have people that follow suit, right? Which is kind of cool. Anyway, they were looking for disability. One of their fans actually has a prosthetic leg. And so not only did they choose the prosthetic leg, but they even actually added his face to it. So that's like his version inside the game, which is super cool. I dig that. Also, they have this really, really sweet playlist here. Highly recommended. The moment I saw Paleface Swiss, Left to Suffer, Alpha Wolf, Fit for a King, right? Lorna Shore, all of these are mainstays, pretty much always playing in the car when my wife and I are traveling. The moment I saw the Akudama music video and had Gohan in it, I was sold on Alpha Wolf, even though I came in on their new singer. It's suffice it to say, very cool playlist. Highly recommend you to play that. That's awesome. But I love this community engagement. The fact that they have this. The fact that a person just made this and they're like, yeah, we'll post it. Sure, why not? Right? It's got even a mirror on there. Why not? Just very on point for the game. And it's cool that these niche little companies can make these niche games for this community and really celebrate the community. We see a lot of campaigns, I've been showing a lot, that are very professional, very business-like, and a little bit colder feeling, right? You don't get this level of connection. Like, yeah, let's just make you a character because this came up. This was not intended. They just did that because somebody left a comment. Very cool to see. So again, not for everybody. Definitely a little bit more risky, right? Because it's a indie. But I will continue to show indies because at the end of the day, a lot of this is why crowdfunding exists. I think that's super cool. Awesome that they're doing that. That's wild. All right. Okay. Avalon the Riven Veil by Shadowborn Games. 14 days still to go. Almost 800,000 raised. Almost 5,000 backers. Quite impressive for a competitive game. This is competitive games naturally tend to just have less people back them on crowdfunding. Mostly you want crowdfunding, mostly you want fantasy, right? Those two, crowdfunding or cooperative narrative often helps. Cooperative narrative and fantasy. Get those 3 together, you're going to fund extremely well. There are exceptions, but you can look at the stats, the top 20 or whatever, a vast majority are going to be that, and you see that all the time. This has the fantasy, but it has the competitive, which is kind of interesting, right? 2 to 4, no solo because it's competitive. Still doing quite well, actually quite impressed with that. I have a review of this. I don't have an unboxing. I don't believe they wanted an unboxing, but I do have a review of it. So again, I'll try to link down to that down in the description below, of course. This one, you have $59 for the retail game pledge. The core game pledge, though, is what you want is the $99, and that gets you everything kind of that you'd want there. And then the deluxe game pledge, $159, beautiful book that they're doing there. And then the collector's all-in pledge, $199. Again, nice to have the collector's all-in at less than $200 technically. There's a little thing about their artists I'll touch on, but all I was going to say here is if you look at the daily unlocks here, you can see some of the unlocks they've done. So they have a lot of these mythic beasts, like the Mist Wolves or Longshanks or whatever, or a Grimward. Anytime there's a frog mini, I'm a fan. Thanks, Kingdom Forlorn. Very excited about that. A turtle, of course, why not? Very fancy little cubes that you're doing and stuff like this. I like the Excalibur stone that you actually get to stab in the rock and take out, and the Holy Grail miniature. Very smart upgrades. So very much focused on just the mythic beasts that you can recruit as you go about the map and explore, and then some upgrades, more artifact cards, right, stuff like that. So very cool to see. One thing I did notice, and I didn't notice this before, somehow it did not dawn on me, that their artist Dennis Loberman, huge shout out. So he actually, if you go to my channel page, the artwork on there, he actually did. He's an amazing artist. He did great with some fan art, and Oathsworn did awesome. And so it's cool that they partner with him. Again, these companies that are indie, that aren't these like big companies, can really like do stuff like that. Hey, we had an art, thing, and hey, this Dennis guy, he made this really good art. Let's actually feature that. Let's actually, hey, why don't you work on our next thing, right? Just super cool to see. Congrats to Dennis for landing the job. Well earned. Obviously, Toby's still doing some amazing sculpt work there, and obviously it looks like he's backed up by a whole crew now, which is super awesome to see. And Jamie's still living the dream, of course. Honestly, I think it's pretty cool. The price is really good for what it is. Like I said, I very much enjoyed it. My family did when we played it. It was a lot of fun. The faction power is awesome, right? The Mythic Beasts, also very cool. Just a solid product. Glad to see that they're not... I like Oathsworn. I think they should continue investing in the IP, but I'm glad they're not just doing that. They're not a one-trick pony. Instead, Jamie said, hey, look, I can make this great kind of Blood Rage 2.0 style kind of thing where it's like, let's take it to the next level, iterate on it, and I can do that as well. And I think he did a great job. So that's super cool. Next up, Lands of Evershade, 4 million from 14,000 plus backers, still 9 days left, to nobody's surprise. Again, this is kind of I picked this on purpose to go between the two because I think both have beautiful art, but a lot of what you see when it comes to until it's touched up by humans is AI from Awaken Realms, from the sculpts, which they fixed some of them, which is good. But literally, like the sculpt models, AI can do that now, of course. But even obviously, a lot of their art is prompt based and all that kind of stuff. Like they actually use Stable Diffusion and whatnot. I'll get into that towards the end of the video, but suffice it to say, this is still doing very well. They do very great. They make a lot of money, so I guess it can afford the AI tools there. The actual gameplay of this still kind of eludes me. Obviously, it's a choose your own adventure. That's kind of what they've been doing. Again, narrative, right? Solo, co-op, and fantasy. Kind of bread and butter for crowdfunding. I love that style. Everybody else does too. A lot of different things where you're going through there. This is kind of, again, you're going through the map and doing stuff here, and I'm sure there's some videos that show this off more. On the campaign page itself, it doesn't dig too much into this. One of the things it does is go into the character creation thing, so I'll show you that as well. Also, I do have an answer to the body A, body B type. I was wondering what that was about, and now I do know. Regardless of anything, and I know I'm a little bit more critical of them, and I think it's just because they are a big company, because they make a lot of money, and they use some of the more overt AI stuff, which kind of bothers me that the big company does a lot of AI. Again, I'll talk about it towards the end because their excuse for it is kind of weird. They're just talking about firing people, which is odd. But before I get into that, this will be a good deal. It always is. They somehow cram so much components and qualities and stuff for what you're getting relatively cheap. It's actually kind of crazy. It really is. Awaken Realms knows how to make very, very pretty games with really good component quality, minus a little bit of issue with the miniature sculpts. I think they're not quite top tier there, but they've really pushed envelope in some things like, incorporating the base sculpting and terrain and stuff like that. So overall, again, it's going to look pretty. You see all the stuff here. They're going to have a ton of stuff, and they're unlocking a ton of stuff, and there's a whole bunch of premium stuff that they're also doing, of course, which is cool. In fact, even the Sundrop stuff, they really push the envelope in there. So there's a lot of good credit for that. The fact the leather cover books, I mean, come on. Like, they do a really good job with that, and you're going to get a ton of stuff. So that is super cool to see. I do really dig that. I'll give them credit for that. They're not normally super miniature heavy, and I don't think they really are here either. You can see they were calling them high-quality models instead of minis. I don't know if you want to be really wordy about it, sure, but they're minis, right? You're getting there. And then, of course, a ton of stuff, right? If it wouldn't be them without a whole bunch of writing and a whole bunch of tokens, right? So 300 plus character board tokens, 100 plus other tokens, and then, of course, you have markers and all sorts of stuff like that. So this player's handbook, by the way, super duper cool. Looks great. And you can see here there's the different stories that you can go through here. And that's kind of what they're doing there. And then, of course, you get the stretch goals as well. Okay, so this is kind of neat, right? This a special edition only, but they have the hardcover, just beautiful player's handbook. Again, sounds very RPG-like, right? That dives into a whole bunch of lore and stuff like this. Again, I don't know if they AI the lore and stuff too, because they pump out a ton of text, but so does Into the Unknown. As far as I know, they don't do that. So I'm not sure that's it, but obviously they're producing a lot. But if you want to play like an elf character, for instance, it tells you how to set it up, and then you set it up, and that includes what you can wear and what you can do and stuff like that. Very cool. This right here looks straight out of Chronicles of Drunagar to me. Like that is exactly the tray style that they have for their cards, like almost exact. So kind of interesting to see that here as well. This can end up taking a lot of table space. It did in Chronicles of Drunagar. It probably does here as well. The moment you need the big tray because you have this many cards, like you know you're gonna look at some table space here. So definitely a lot there. Again, a lot of tokens and stuff like that. I do worry a bit about the fact that the item tokens are tokens. Often when they're tokens, you don't get a lot of the items don't feel as different as it could be because the token is limited in space versus a card that can add a whole bunch of symbols and text and different things that allow you to do different things. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how all that works. But I suspect if I was to hazard a guess, which again, you've just scrolled through most of it, notice there wasn't a whole lot on gameplay. I would assume you're reading a lot and doing a lot of skill checks. That's what most do here. So right here, you can kind of see body type A and body type B are just meaning, they just don't want to say male and female for the gender, so they're just calling them body types, and they'll swap it. Sometimes body type A is the male version of the body, sometimes it is the female version of the body. This just confuses things a lot. I understand the idea, I understand the concept, but I've literally gotten hurt in games before because I've tried to I've spent an hour once trying to figure out why I couldn't wear a piece of armor, and then I was like, wait, what's body type B? What is body type B? And I had to go look it up because it means nothing. It's just generic placement. So I was like, oh, only the female body type. But again, this isn't even consistent. There are others like the human where the body type A is the female one and the body type B is the male. It just, whatever. I don't know. It just, to me, it just obfuscates something that I don't think is super necessary here. You just pick whichever one you want. I think it's okay. No, that's one of the nice things about a board game is you can literally pick, if you want to pick a different mini for it, there's nothing stopping you. If you want to be a blind person, what are they called? The blanks. Which is a cool idea, but you want to use this mini, there's literally nothing stopping you. No board game police are going to arrest you. You can do whatever you want. But anyway, that's what they're doing there, which is okay, fine. The update I wanted to show you here is they did correct the, I'm assuming, AI sculpt that I called out. So I'm glad that they fixed that. So if you recall, her hands were just like garbage. In fact, her whole arms were. It was just really, really bad. And now this is showing fine. Again, as you can see, the body types are all swapped now. So this is literally just a placement that means nothing, right? Because they'll slot whatever they want in there. But this used to look really, really bad. Like the wrapping, this was garbage looking. Looked terrible. Like, this is much better now that a person touched it. This is why you don't just, like, chuck AI out and then try and sell it. It was pretty bad. And they've been doing this a lot lately where they've been just letting their AI stuff mess up. There is one point that still needs to be fixed by an actual person once they can find an artist, one of their many artists, I guess, to actually touch up. It'd be nice. And that is this guy right here. He has these like fingernails that are like armor plating, right? That it did for whatever reason. So ideally they touched that up. Look, I know I dig on Awaken Realms, and a lot of it is because they do this thing where they show the art, they make it look like a mini, and the art is already like, so they take AI art, they make it look like a mini, and then they try to sell like the mini's gonna look like that. And then when they do make the mini, they change it a little bit, but even still they add like this fake texture onto everything and then do it super close, make it look like a mini, so you think this is an actual picture of the mini, but it's actually not. So they're showing like close-ups of fake texture that they do not even plan to actually sell with. So it just, what you're seeing versus what you get is great, but I'm not a huge supporter of making what you're advertising on Kickstarter look as far removed as possible from what you're actually going to get. It's like with the fake texture, the added detail that won't be there, the AI art, it just it compounds a lot, and it does bother me a little bit that they purposely do that. All right, but moving on from that. KeyForge, Prophetic Visions, 127,000 raised, 400 plus backers, 14 days to go. KeyForge is fascinating. It's very interesting to me how it works. A lot of people are loving it. Mathematically, it makes sense, and that's because a computer makes it. So we're going from like AR to like, this is kind of like an AI board game. It's very, very fascinating. So to explain this a little bit, and what they're doing here is they have Prophetic Visions. Essentially, you can lay a prophecy card and kind of like over time, it can become true. And if it does, then your opponent needs to like resolve it. So it's kind of a play down and then hopefully, actually activate later, which is kind of cool. Over 200 new cards that they're doing here. One of the interesting things here, if we're going to go to rewards, there's going to be a lot. In fact, as you can see, there is actually a fair bit, and then quite a bit of add-ons too. I'm not going to go over all of them. What I will kind of explain is why you see multiple decks, because this makes it seem like booster packs, but they're not. They are full decks each. How KeyForge works is they essentially have a computer program, we'll call it an AI, that has a lot of these heuristics to like make a deck and make a game where the decks interact with each other. But it's not completely black box. They can feed it in stuff like these prophecy cards. Like, hey, here are these prophecy cards. This is an ability you can do. This is stuff. But then it actually makes these decks. And so the decks are literally kind of like, it's almost like getting all the Magic the Gathering cards, putting them in a database, and then clicking random generator, and out it comes. But making the random generator kind of smart. Very interesting idea to do. And so what this is these are the different decks that essentially this program has made in tandem with the people designing specific kind of like things like the prophecy cards and stuff that they're putting in there. So it's kind of a halfsies between computer created and people created in a very interesting way. They do have some handmade ones as well, and they've been advertising that also. You can get a whole bunch of them. Very interesting way to do it. KeyForge has been around for a while now, so still doing fairly well here as well. All right, Dungeons of Doria, they have a reprint and expansion. I covered this before in the first one. This is a ton of game, a love letter to like old style RPGs. There's a ton of content here. It's actually fairly cheap for what you get. Pretty darn cool. As you can see, 500 plus unique loot items. It's crazy how much stuff this is. 50 different modifiers. Just crazy. 1 to 6 players, very RPG-like. Initiative says yes. So there is a ton here. So you can get the a new backer all in for 106, right? If you just want the core box, it's about 88. So pretty cool there. They do have STL minis, by the way, because normally it's standees. But the STL minis, $10, and you get your characters as STLs. Pretty darn cool. All right, next up we have Starlock by Den of Imaginations, which started out, I believe, as a 3D sculpt company. So that's very cool to see, obviously, that they're doing this. This is a very interesting game. Essentially, you're on this place. Think of it kind of like the planet's called Starlock, but think of it kind of like Borderlands. And like, hey, this is just a crappy place. You don't want to be here at night, right? So there's kind of a ticking clock. It's PvP, but at the same time, what essentially everybody's trying to escape. And so you're trying to repair your ship. But one of the cool things, and they show this in the video as well, is you can go to somebody else's ship, finish repairing it, and then launch in their ship, which is kind of a neat idea. So yeah, there is solo, there is co-op, but the main thing is PvP. These are kind of alternatives, so just know that going into it. And again, sci-fi, competitive, definitely funding a little bit less than normal just based off that. I think that's kind of the big thing there. I do love the Metal Gears. I think that's kind of fun to scrap. I think the 3D map and how that's set up is pretty cool, so I dig that as well. Honestly, it looks kind of neat. I kind of dig a lot of what I'm seeing here. It definitely seems different, as you can see. It's changing how things go. Very cool. Again, I like seeing new things being done, and this is a very neat way to do it, and the minis look quite nice as well. If we go to rewards, you'll see that the Starlock full gear, 225, which is kind of the main one there. If you have the 500 only, there's only 321 taken, so you can get the Founders Club for 107. That's definitely possible. So, and again, some of these like 1,000 only, well, it was taken only 8 times. So there's just too many here. As you can see, there's a lot, and I think sometimes that can be kind of confusing for people when there are a lot of different rewards you can pick from. Ideally, you have maybe 4 in my mind. All right, next up, this is actually on BackerKit. I know I don't show that very often, but this is another Mothership RPG. It's not a board game, it is an RPG. You essentially play as a bounty hunter, but you can even like get caught and then like go to prison and stuff like that, which is kind of crazy. It's called Wages of Sin. Mothership is just a cool IP that I kind of dig. I kind of look at it from the outskirts looking in. But if you're into a sci-fi RPG or into something like Mothership, and this is definitely something you'd want to do. One of the bummers about BackerKit is, first of all, there's like this is one of their biggest ones, and yet it hasn't been the main page hasn't been updated in like forever. Like their stretch goals have been unlocked and they just don't update the front page. Additionally, and this is kind of weird, when you go to like Back It, like it doesn't actually say when it's going to deliver. So this is, I think, Q2 2025, but it's kind of hard to find out because it doesn't show it really anywhere, right? It's just BackerKit still needs a lot of work to get good. That is for sure. But either way, this is there and available now, which is kind of cool. 344,000 raised. Over 4,000 backers 15 days ago. Again, this is actually a pretty big IP. It's doing very, very good for itself. All right, next up we have Catharsis 2nd Edition Dice Rolling Adventure Board Game. This is, again, another smaller one. Only 179 backers. 53,000 raised, still 15 days to go. And again, when it gets to these indie ones, sometimes it'd be kind of hard. Like, what is Catharsis? What are you doing with Catharsis? There's the 2.0 here, and it says what the 2.0 stuff is, but not really what the 1.0 stuff is, which is kind of interesting. Also, I do suspect that there's some AI art involved in this one as well. It just seems to be the case, especially looking kind of farther down. But yeah, you can get for like $359, right? You can get this. So obviously, some people know. 14 people know enough to 25 people. Angel tier, $379, right? You get like neoprene mats and junk like that. But 17 times $599. Like who's doing this? Deluxe boxes, all games, all dice, art books, playmat sleeves. Like that's a hefty amount for this game. So obviously, there's people that really are enjoying this game, especially a 2.0 version of it. It's kind of cool to see. But some of it is just the varying art styles. You have like these kind of anime ones, and you have these like non-anime ones, right? So very interesting, the smattering of different styles here. Which is, again, just kind of odd. But then there's one picture in particular that really throws me off AI-wise. This is kind of cool. So essentially, you have your deck, and then you flip your cards over, and like these are your options. As you can see, there's some dice here, and this kind of says how it plays. So the gameplay itself seems kind of cool. You like the blood person changes how this operates compared to others, and that's kind of your game board. So it's through cards. Again, a very neat idea. I think there's some neat things here for sure. This right here, I have no idea what in God's name is going on here. This is supposedly a boss sniper. And this is what I mean by, like, I feel like there's AI involved here. If I'm going to zoom in here. So you have, like, what looks like the torso here, you have the head here. The head looks like photoshopped on with this weird hat that's kind of sideways, in this very odd position, leaning down with the trees going sideways this way. And then it looks like the leg may go up here, but it also kind of starts being the tree here, and then the foot is going where, I don't know. Look, this just looks weird. Everything about this looks weird. I have no idea what's going on here, and it just looks so different than everything else. It's one of those things where, again, I feel like there's some AI involved, which a lot of these smaller companies, you know, they can hire an artist, I guess. So, you know, they just have a whole bunch of AI art and they throw it up there, and maybe it works, and you can do a whole game like that. They have done it before. Whether these people are, I don't know. And you may have an issue with that, or you may not. I don't know. But it is, I think, worth noting, I guess, how much of a human element board games are in particular have. Unlike like video game stuff like this, board games are a creation for a person to actually interact with physically. And I think there's a little bit more sacredness involved in the human element of that, which is why I put that above in board games more than I would necessarily somebody, for instance, submitting some code for me, where if they want to have their AI write some tests on the code, that's fine. It's not a creative endeavor. A lot of these board games are a very creative endeavor, so it's, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. All right. Also, FYI, they're going to have this is going to launch like right afterwards in December. So like next month, they're already going to have another one, this Christmas and Easter co-op co-op board game. I don't know what's going on here, but they're doing a lot of catharsis, so whatever it is. All right, Mighty Shot. Mighty Shot's coming up 14 hours from now at time of recording. It'll be here slightly after I post this video. This is from This Is a Game. A lot of them came from Mythic Games. They were not the ones obviously making the decisions, because obviously they were let go, right? These were just some of the workers, you know, grinding day to day trying to make a board game, right? Not necessarily management. So this is an FYI there. I think I incorrectly categorized the artist here, and I shouldn't have. So this is by Shin. I hope I'm saying that right. Very good artist. He worked on oh, shoot, I can't even think of the name right now. Clash of Rage. One of a really, really great game, and obviously beautiful artwork as well. And you can see his artwork here. It's fantastic. This is an interesting game. It's a co-op game, so again, not going to fund as much, just inherently based off that. But you have your like map here, and you lock it up to the other person's map. And then you like deploy your minions here, and then your boss, and you're just trying to kill everybody over on that side, right? But you have this like these little pucks that you're like flicking and trying to get on the target and stuff there to actually deal the damage. So it's a little bit dexterity, a little bit management. Then you have your cards that allow you to do different things and move around and whatnot. Very interesting to see. They have the standard edition with standees, or the deluxe championship with these beautiful looking minis, although obviously we're just looking at renders now. But between the art and this art, by the way, his art style very much leans to very nice, easy minis. And the scale looks pretty good as well, but they're very kind of chunky and cartoony, I think, in a very cool way. Now, will this have that crisp of fingernails? Of course not, let's be real. But overall, what I'm seeing here is definitely, certainly doable. So that's pretty cool to see. And honestly, again, I think they look really cool. So excited to see where this goes, actually. All right, next up we have Malediction Prime Edition. I'm not going to cover this too much. It's by Loot Studios, which is like famous for their 3D print and RPG content. Malediction is a card game with some 3D printed minis that you can do. I will be showing this off. They are sending me a pack, so I'll be able to let you know more about this game soon. So stay tuned on the channel for that. If you haven't obviously subscribed, I'll tell you all about it. It looks beautiful. Again, I love the focus. It's ironic that the STL company, right, it's just doing digital goods here, is showing more effort in like the art department and stuff than like Awaken Realms. Not only are the miniatures fantastic, of course, and expertly sculpted and accurately shown without added texture and fakeness, but they actually are getting like Tracy Hickman here, who did like Dragonlance series and stuff like that, like writing the story. Like they're very focused on like a real person writing the story, real people sculpting, the sculpts being accurate to what you're actually going to get. Like all that kind of stuff I think is just super cool. Happy to see it. Over almost 3,000 people following. This is going to be really cool looking, I think. And should be fairly cheap as well. All right, next up we have Sacred Sands. This is by Stranger Game Studios. They did Kabula, again, another indie game company. Being still very indie, this looks very indie, obviously. Like, I have no idea what the heck's going on here. Essentially, you play like pharaohs and pyramids that are sending out scarabs to like fight each other. What that means, I don't know, but they have like flying units and armored units and basic units, and I don't know. We'll find out more. I'll show you more when I find out. But that just seems kind of like a, I don't know. They're kind of goofy. I just know that if I was 8 years old, or if my son was still 8, he would see that game box with 2 beetles just like locking horns fighting and like freak out and think that's awesome. All right, Cthulhu Death May Die Forbidden Reaches by Kaman is coming out still. It's about a week out. Again, I'll remind you once it is out, and we'll take a look at it together. There's no role update here. Nothing's really changed. They're still offering the Bigature. If you want a gigantic Godzilla mini, this is your way to get it. Masters of Orion at Astra is still coming out this now in like next year, so early next year it's coming out. They did push it out. I do have a prototype here, so we'll be doing a review of that soon, so stay tuned for that. Of course, this is by Archon Studio, and this is going to be their next campaign, I believe. So it looks pretty good. I think they moved it out for an accounting reason, which is kind of odd, but I know a lot of these, they count as like essentially owing money when a campaign finishes, and they probably didn't want to do that at the end of the year. I can kind of understand that. Batman Gotham City Chronicles RPG Skyline Edition used to be on Kickstarter, now on GameFound. The fact that Monolith is doing GameFound is a big deal. I've had conversations with them before. They were not too keen to move to GameFound for all the reasons that we originally went through with GameFound first launch. So the fact that they're kind of coming around to GameFound is a very interesting thing here. Now, did GameFound talk to them and give them some, sweeten the deal a little bit? I don't know. But either way, very cool to see. There's not been a lot of big RPG stuff, I feel, on GameFound before. This is already bringing almost 8,000 people from the swap. This already was on Kickstarter. This is just the people that moved over to this. So that's kind of cool to see. This is essentially a reprint of their RPG that I've shown off. So again, looks very pretty. Obviously, wonderful art. Cool deep dive into Gotham City. Awesome addition there. Dungeons & Lasers 7 Porthaven, also by Archon Studio. Again, this will be coming out later, probably mid next year. Over 10,000 people following. This is going to be massive. I'm excited for this one just because I have the Freebooters Fate miniatures. They do a lot of like pirate, stuff. And so getting a big ship and docks and all that terrain for this, I think would be really, really cool to do. Obviously, this is good for any of your D&D stuff. They're going to have these cool monsters and characters and all sorts of fun stuff that I think might be good to have like NPCs in there. So even if I just get that, I think it'd be a good match for, just livening up my, battles in Freebooters Fate. I think that'd be a really cool idea. So excited for that. They do a fantastic job with Dungeons & Lasers. It's like printing money for them. Hybris is coming out soon with a Twilight of the Olympus, where you have like Loki now and stuff like that. Like we'll go over it, but Hybris is something I covered a long time ago. Not the typical kind of game I would cover, but again, an indie game, a very beautiful game, a different game, and I appreciated every one of those aspects. Early 2025 here on GameFound, and yeah, very cool. So the Trojan War has begun here, and as you can see, this is freaking awesome. I think that's really cool. Looks very, very different, right? So you play as your Olympian in their MK. I'm assuming that's like their suit. And as you can see, these ships are coming in. They have the asymmetrical gameplay. They have different maps on here. It looks like neoprene maps. All your ships have these tokens that are doing different things. Again, I think it's really cool that they're doing Hybris is very much like all these different mechanics. Again, it's kind of a Euro-y style kind of thing, but with beautiful miniatures, a cool theme, interesting shaped boards that are like crazy and take up a lot of space. But either way, it's different, it's cool, and I like it. So that's coming up here soonish as well. Blasphemous, a board game. Another game that is, this is interesting because it's IP based, but at the same time, it's an IP that, first of all, not everybody even knows. It's like a Metroidvania, like sprite-based, grim, Dark Souls style kind of game. But it's a little bit more indie. It's like an indie darling of a video game. So interesting to see Ludus Mana Studio taking on this. They did add some more stuff here. This is competitive, though you have to team up to fight some things, which is kind of interesting. You're going to play as different penitents is how they're doing that. So see, that's the video game, and then this is not how you I mean, you could do that with your minis, I guess, if you want. That's awesome. As you can see, the Metroidvania map is now like an overlay. But here's one of the penitents here, again, looking fantastic. Their minis actually have been really good for a long time. Here's another penitent here, and then they have some of their enemies here that again are just really, really cool looking, just different than anything else on the market right now. A very cool theme. I'm excited to learn more. Okay. Last one here. This is from Mini Wargaming, which is kind of cool. But again, it's one of those things where I think if Freebooter's Fate would work really well. Obviously, any fantasy-based game would work really well. This is another 3D print terrain thing, so it's FDM printing, and it looks like it'd be pretty good. This is definitely for like a more of a like a Warhammer style, like Age of Sigmar kind of thing, whereas Freebooter's Fate would have more solid places like this, right? But it looks like they got both, which is kind of cool. So really digging that. Oh, one of the things I like here is the tile set here. Even if you're just using this for an RPG, I think that'd be really cool. Okay, let's go to the talking point now. So I was curious about the AI that Awaken Realms was essentially caught doing with Grimhoven. We all kind of suspected leading up to that, and now they are finally addressing it. Now, GameFound does not have a required AI section like Kickstarter does at the very bottom. So on the campaign page of their campaigns, you're not going to see anything on Awaken Realms that mentions AI. They're not going to touch it, even when they have like disformed like arms and junk that they have to fix later on, right? They do have an FAQ here, though. And finally, I did find the fact that in the FAQ, they did mention their AI art. Now, they start by saying, hey, we got a ton of artists. And then they go on to say, and we use a ton of AI, more than I think a lot of them do. Some of it is obviously the stuff like within Photoshop or like intelligent brushes, advanced texturing, and some AI tools. But they will do like stable diffusion models and stuff, right? MJ models, pixel correction, scaling solutions, so on. In other words, pretty much everything. Now it says here, everything we use is screened and accepted by our legal team as fully legal to use. So in other words, the most human impact here is by a bunch of lawyers to make sure that they didn't overtly steal from anybody, which isn't necessarily reassuring, but I appreciate the spin. Now, it says here, those are different tools that we use to bring a better quality to our customers. Now, the problem here is that I kind of already touched on the fact that it's not the case, right? They're coming out with art that has artifacts. They're coming, and this is the stuff that slips by, right? They're coming out with art that isn't possible in a miniature, so they have to change the miniature sculpt because they don't have a human artist that understands this needs to be a miniature this big and mass injected. So they just have the AI do whatever the heck and then try and make a mini from that. And so the art already doesn't match now the miniature. The art is already having artifacts that are slipping by because they're not even looking at it that close. And then even the models are having so many issues that it becomes very apparent, at least to me, and I show them off like, hey, this is the hands freaking warped. There's no fingers. It's like some tentacle tree root is holding a bow until they go and then finally have a human touch the AI-generated model. So even the miniature models themselves are just created by AI. So I don't know how that is a better quality for customers when all you're seeing on their campaign page is a whole lot of AI-generated art, semi-touched up by humans and then spat out, and for a campaign page. To me, it's not a better experience for me. Sure, it looks pretty. They've done tons of studies already where people pick AI art as looking better. I get it. Like, it literally knows what the human wants to see for the most part. Ideally, we get hands on miniatures, but, maybe someday they'll figure out how fingernails work. And maybe someday Awaken Realms will touch up that obviously not human-made sculpt. Like, who on earth would sculpt it that way? And to fix that, like they fixed the human ranger there. So it obviously not better for the consumers, but whatever, spin it however you want. I don't know how using AI makes that campaign experience better when literally I just listed a whole lot of problems it causes. But what the heck do I know? Now this is weird. This is so strange, so strange. So to say here, This is our statement on the topic. We're fully dedicated to supporting and growing our art team as well as bringing the best quality to our backers. Again, I just proved how AI art is literally making their content worse, not better. We believe that this approach is better than making big PR statements and then firing people with a week's notice, as unfortunately can be observed all throughout the industry. This is something I fundamentally disagree with, and I'm tempted to make this its own dedicated video. They're essentially saying, hey, we have to use AI. The alternative, this using AI is excuse because it beats putting out a PR statement saying, hey, we don't use AI, and then firing a whole bunch of people. That's literally the false choice they're giving you here. Hey, we got to use AI, or we got to fire a whole bunch of people and not use AI. And so so they're like, hey, we want to invest in our artists that get to touch up and prompt, I guess. It just I know they do more than that. I know I'm simplifying it, but at the same time, I'm seeing worse content come out from Awaken Realms, an increase in AI usage, and a false spin on the alternative of AI is firing a bunch of people and a PR statement. You can either afford to have artists or you can't, right? It just makes no sense to me that they're thinking that literally we can operate what we're doing right now without AI, and trying to spin it like that's the only other choice. Hey, look, it's AI or we're firing our artists. Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe you need to run a better company then. If those are your only two choices. The PR is bad. I don't like that they're trying to make it seem like it's being a good thing for us, when literally I'm seeing it farther and farther and farther removed from the actual beautiful game that they end up making. It just sucks that the first impression that I get with it is, oh my gosh, look at all these artifacts. So they didn't bother looking at it on the cover art of Grim Coven. The very big thing, they didn't even bother to prompt it, spit it out there, have people buy it. At this point, I almost feel like they're making board games around AI art, and they just found a whole bunch of AI art, and they're like, okay, now let's make a board game around it. Like, it just makes no sense to me. It's wild. And the fact that now there's sculpts. As far as I can tell, Awaken Realms uses more AI than any other company I've seen in board games. They have so many different artifacts all over the place on their campaigns. It's just wild. In fact, people are starting to suggest maybe even their updates are, because sometimes they're written weird. And so every time you see a weirdly written update, you're like, man, Awaken Realms may as well be AI instead of AW, right? Or AR. Just, I don't know. Really bothered me. Wanted to touch that at the end here. Support companies, obviously. Buy what you want to buy. Buy what interests you. But let's make sure that crowdfunded board games are not just regurgitated super mass market. Will do great in retail. Big company AI fests either. Ideally, we do support the indies. Ideally, we do get back to what made Kickstarter great, which wasn't just 18 million expansions and premium gold lettering on everything, and actually just really cool, interesting games. My opinion, I don't know. You let me know yours, of course. And again, if there's anything that I missed, do let me know that as well. Or if there's anything I need to look at, of course, let me know. There are a ton of links down below. Again, if you do appreciate the news video, a little bit of talking points, a little bit of opinion, a lot of different games, a lot of different campaigns and companies, there's that like button, of course, or that subscribe button. Helps me out a lot, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye, guys.